This is Rating Descending,
where we watch spooky bonus episodes sometimes.
My name is Stabu Gale Gord.
And I'm Machete Saint Scare.
And this Halloween, we watched Howling 2, Your Sister is a Werewolf. A man discovers that his sister was a werewolf and helps an investigator track down a gang of the monsters through the United States and Eastern Europe. Let's watch.
Abby, it's Halloween.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you. I feel like I already know what your response will be, not as the actual answer, but to me asking it. If you could be any Halloween spooky monster, what would it be?
Witch. I'd be a witch.
You'd be a witch? Okay, because
maybe it sounds like unimaginative and not creative, but like when I was a kid, I genuinely wanted to be a witch. That was my career of choice. Like my high school girlfriend had to do an assignment where she did like, what did you want to be when you grow up? And I said I wanted to be a witch. So we did a photo shoot where I was a witch. It was part of like the project for photography. I mean it. I really desperately wanted to be a witch so bad. Loved the aesthetic, loved the vibe, loved like the lack of responsibility it entailed and also just the pure evil. I wanted to be a witch. I would still choose a witch.
Yeah, I totally get that. I'm surprised you didn't go more witchy with your D&D character.
Based around my mum. She's like a big pudding of a character.
I have a pre-approved Spookums list, which I did say do witches count? Because you're right, witches are very Halloween-y, but are they a spooky Halloween monster?
What the fuck is a pre-approved Spookums list? What the fuck is that? What do you mean you have one?
I was worried that if I said if you could be any spooky monster, you would go, well, geez, Michelle, what monsters do you mean? And I'd be able to bust out, here's my theoretical pre-approved Spookums, but feel free to expand. But you had an answer so instantaneously that it's not been needed.
What the fuck? Thank you for doing the work. I thought you would have seen this coming a mile off.
I mean, but that, like I said, I didn't know if witches did or didn't. If it wasn't a witch.
Do you think that they count? Like, because I think they're a monster. Like, they're not, they don't look like monsters, but like they are monstrous.
It depends on the styling of witch. If it is, like crazy witch in the woods where they're basically a different creature, then that's absolutely a Halloween monster. But some witches are just like a woman who knows magic, and like that's not a Halloween monster.
To get away with it, you'd have to be crone-like, You'd have to be a big fucking crone. Like you'd have to be like a haggard woman that could transform.
Would you still pick witch?
Fuck yeah! I don't need to be a sexy witch. I just love the idea of like being I always imagined I'd be in like a little cave, like I'd be a cave dwelling witch, and I would have like. Yeah, I'd basically have like rooms of cauldrons for my potions and stuff, and I'd sit by a window of my cave, probably like on the side, and then just look out into the forest. How does your cave have a window?
Isn't a cave defined by its insideness?
Well, like how like a cave, it's like the big entrance is one hole. Think of just a smaller hole on the side of like the mound that the cave is within. That's my little window. Okay, it's my little book nook. I read there.
It's not a cave that's necessarily very deep. It's very like, perimeter based. What's your secondary then, if not witch?
What monster would I be?
Yeah, I mean, if you're wondering what kind of things, I have a pre-approved Spookums list.
Oh, please give me. I would love some recommendations from the pre-approved Spookums list with the Machete Saint Scare seal of approval.
This is Machete Saint Scare's pre-approved Spookums list. Werewolf, obvious for this episode.
Classic. Get on with it. Come on. Don't fuck around.
Vampire. Yeah. Spooky ghost. Zombie. Swamp monster.
What's swamp monster? Like
like creature from the Black Lagoon, or even swamp monster from the nebulous, mossy, wet creature. A demon, evil clown, a mummy. The Blob, and inspired by things like Halloween or Jason Takes Manhattan and stuff, just some guy. A very frequent...
Men are pretty scary. I mean, the list got scarier as you move towards the bottom.
Yeah, that was my pre-approved Spookums list.
You could put all these monsters in front of me, but if it was like I was walking at night and just some guy was walking towards me, scariest option. I'd rather a blob swallow me whole.
It's certainly not the one that I would pick to be, which I think is most obvious.
Yeah, I really like, if someone gave me the option, I'd really like to take full advantage of it. I wouldn't just be some guy. Like, I would really want to take full advantage of changing my form entirely. And things like that are so body-like mummies and witches even, I guess. And I guess. Very like human-like. If I was like really, I would really want to embrace it. I would love, I think the one that stood out to me, honestly, I would love to be a blob. Like I would love to just like roll around and swallow things and absorb things. I think that'd be really, I'd love to know what it would feel like. That'd be sick.
Yeah, I would also want to know what it would feel like to be able to absorb. I feel like the only thing we really absorb is like when we're in water too long, we get pruny. Oh, moisturizer, I guess. But I want to be able to like fully absorb. I want to watch the life drain out of something's eyes as it becomes part of my skin, you know?
Yeah, like the Doctor Who episode, Love and Monsters, the Absorbatron. Like, great monster. I'm like, fuck yeah, I'd love to absorb people.
I'm pretty sure it was an Absorbaloff.
Fuck. You know it too well. Absorbatron. Same shit. What would you be, Michelle?
On the one hand, like I feel like vampire is too obvious a pick because that's the one where you're really hot and sexy and strong and powerful. But I don't like the idea that I'm like forced to become evil, because like a vampire, you're just like drawn to evil as opposed to choosing a life of evil because of your monstrous form. I like the idea of being werewolf. I mean, I'm already well acquainted with body issues, so I feel like I would be able to know like techniques to not feel so bad about it. And like
werewolf, like being a werewolf takes body dysmorphia to a whole new level. Sorry, dysphoria.
I'd be able to communicate effectively with my partner about this issue. Like I feel like I'd be really good at being a werewolf.
Yeah, I honestly think like you've already had to straddle two worlds effectively, so why not a third?
Exactly. This is where I'm coming from, man. Werewolf, I'm fucking prime pick.
I love that for you. If you could have a second choice. I mean, okay, this is more my question. I don't care about your second choice. I want to know, would you be a blob with me?
Oh, would I be a blob with you? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Because implicitly, I feel like if there were two blobs that were their whole shtick was absorbing, would we not just absorb each other, or are we like made from enough different blob material that we stay distinct blobs and we just absorb collectively?
I think like because we can do whatever the fuck we want in this world, and also being able to do whatever the fuck you want is definitely a theme for this episode according to some of the research that I did into this film.
Wow.
But I love the idea of like us. I think in this world we don't absorb each other. Like we bounce off each other. We're partners in crime. We can't absorb each other. That defeats the point. But we can work together to absorb things better and faster. We can absorb it's basically just double trouble, and like it's you and me being blob pals, like a buddy cop film.
I'd be a blob pal with you. Like they're running away. They're like, oh no, it's the blob. But then I'm actually that direction. We'll just like sandwich them together.
You come around a corner, but with slightly different colors. Like you're green and I'm pink or something. You know, super fun.
Yeah, I like that. Just blobbing together, blobby pals.
Yeah, just blobbing together. Your blob has a brown fringe.
Not even the rest of the hair, just the fringe.
No other, just the fringe.
Just
a clip-on.
Does it have glasses or just the fringe?
The glasses you can see like set back in the jelly, like they went back a bit too far. They're inside the jelly.
They're inside the jelly. Right, so in this scenario, my actual like quote-unquote face is inside the jelly, but then I've just clipped a fringe on.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, okay, I like that.
That's exactly right.
Whereas your blob would have massive cans.
Yeah, big blobby milky mummies just right on the front.
Big blobby milky mummies, which is not baby. Right.
With little like nipples, like little bits coming out.
You know what? Why do I have to have nipples? Nipples, for some reason, for me is the too far point.
But then I can squeeze them and more like jelly goo comes out of them. And it's like just when they think they're safe and they're running, I just squeeze my tit. Like I go, and I like squeeze my blobbiness together and my titties shoot out little goo and it traps them all. And then you come and you finish them off.
This really is a terrifying scenario. This is very Halloween-y,
Do you like it?
Do I like it?
As I mentioned, I said we are buddy cops, blobby cops. So we also have little badges on and like we're fighting crime.
We're fighting crime as blobs. Just absorbing everything. First thing we do, just totally change up the department though.
Yeah, I think there needs to be like a cultural shift in the way that we approach policing. Like I just think that I believe in rehabilitation, you know, and I don't believe in like the police state as it is. So I think like we're very woke blobby cops.
I feel like it'll be a lot easier for the cops to be on our side if we just eat them.
Yeah, all cops are bastards except us, and then we just eat all the
cops are blobs.
That's the shitty B-movie tagline on blobby cops. I would watch the shit out of blobby cops, man. I already want to watch it.
I would really watch blobby cops.
This is our own B movie that we've now brainstormed, and I'm inspired to watch more fucking shitty B movies because of how insane this B movie was. Yeah. Just to segue into the film that we watched this week, which was Howling 2. This was honestly one of the best B movies I've ever seen in my entire life. I loved it. I was astounded. Shit. I was amazed. I was in awe. I had the best time of my life watching this movie, and I would watch it again.
Yeah, this was a cinematic experience. Was it good? Was it quality? Not even a little bit. Was it something I've never seen before? Absolutely 100%.
I don't care that it's not good because it wasn't need to be good. It was a sequel to a kind of well-received horror film, The Howling, but no one attached this ever meant for it to be good. They were like, let's just make a bit more money and make something really campy and fun, and they fucking nailed that. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I watched The Howling 1 as prep for this. I'd already wanted to watch it because it was directed by Joe Dante, who did Gremlins, so I really like some of his work. And this couldn't be a more different tone if it tried. Like, vastly different in style, tone, quality. The first one's pretty good, and it has some pretty gnarly effects in it as well.
I haven't seen the first one because I didn't fucking have time. I really wanted to. But I looked up reviews for it, and yeah, it was like quite well received. I think even Roger Ebert gave it like 4 out of 4, being like, I had a great time. This is exactly the film it should be. Like, it had good reviews. But it wasn't like it had like okay reviews. They were like, this is a good, fun horror film.
It came out the same year as An American Werewolf in London, so I think that somewhat hampered its capacity to have better reviews. But it's also, the first one's funny. Like, it ends on a great joke.
In 1981, there were 3 werewolf films that came out. It was The Howling, American Werewolf in London, and a third one I can't remember. But it made like werewolf films suddenly really popular. I think it was like suddenly like it just built all this interest in horror and werewolf films, and it really took off in the early 80s. But yeah, I don't care. I think this film is honestly just the best thing I've watched in months. This film made me happy. This film was this film was just everything I needed on a Saturday morning where I was really just hungover and coming down and feeling terrible, and I put it on and it made me feel fucking so much better. Yeah. It improved my mood tenfold.
Oh, I'm so glad. We struggled so hard with picking a movie for this bonus thing because a lot of really good picks are just already on the list. And so I'm really glad we went with the right choice of the most incredible werewolf movie I've ever seen in my life. Werewolf movies are hard. I feel like werewolf movies are really hard.
Yeah. But I want to just like get into the overview so we can really start launching into some of the highlights of the film for us because there's so many. I just don't even I don't even know where to start. The costuming or Sybil Danning playing like the werewolf bitch.
Oh my God. Holy shit.
There's just so many highlights. So let me just give you a bit of information about the film and tell you what the plot was. So Howling 2 was directed in 1985 by Philip Mora. And I did a bit of research into Philip and I found a lot of really interesting stuff. Number one, he made his career mostly in Australia. Oh. So he's classified as like an Australian / like Austrian, I can't remember, like German filmmaker.
Cool.
And what's really fascinating as well is that like his family emigrated to Melbourne. So he grew up in Melbourne. His mother was Mirka Mora, who was part of the artist movement of the Heidi Gallery. So she was part of that whole crowd. Like Mirka Mora was a really big Melbourne figure in the art scene. She only died in 2018. And she and her husband set up a bunch of cafes and restaurants in Melbourne to house the artists. Yeah. And all of her stuff was exhibited at the Heidi. I think there's still Mirka Mora stuff showing at the Heidi if you and Brooke go.
That's really cool.
And the Heidi's really special to me because that's where Claude proposed to me. It's a very special place. But that's his mom. So he made his roots in Melbourne with a really fascinating family.
Cool, yeah.
Yeah, and he directed Mad Dog Morgan.
Oh shit! Oh my god. Yeah. Okay, so this guy is legit.
This guy's legit, and I think that I have a respect for him because I think he walked into this movie being like, this movie's a fucking piece of shit and I don't care, I'm going to make it as fun as I can. Like,
oh yeah.
I heard that the vibe on set was actually quite good because Philip Mora was just kind of like, fuck it, let's make this dumb movie, let's have fun with it.
Yeah, this movie went so much harder than it needs to, so that doesn't surprise me.
This movie is not on our list, so we are diverting from our 4.4 stars run at the moment, and we're slipping down into a film that is 3.7 stars on IMDb with like 8,000 reviews.
Oh, but it earns every single one of those stars.
It really does. The first film is vaguely about this journalist called Karen White that becomes a werewolf, and at the end of the film, she transforms in front of like the news cameras at the news station she works at, and she's killed. That's the end of the first one. So this is where the second one takes off. Ben White attends the funeral of his sister, Karen White, the heroine of the first film. He meets both Jenny Templeton, one of Karen's colleagues, and Stefan Krosko, a mysterious interloper who tells him Karen was a werewolf. Providing videotaped evidence of the transformation, Krosko convinces Ben and Jenny to accompany him to Transylvania to battle Sturba, an immortal werewolf queen. And by the way, he says that Transylvania is the dark country.
Yeah.
That's not a name for it. Like no one's ever called it the dark country in any literature about Transylvania. Ben, Jenny, and Stefan arrive, unaware that Sturba is off in her nearby castle already plotting their downfall and having intermittent orgies with people.
Yeah.
Sturba seems to have powers of witchcraft as well as being a werewolf, for she intones a Wiccan chant. By the way, this is like a really simplified like plot because I just couldn't fucking fathom how to describe it.
So much going on in this, so that doesn't surprise me.
Thank you. Eventually, the adventurers battle with Sturba before she is destroyed by Stefan at the cost of his own life. And then Ben and Jenny fuck off back to America and end up together. And there's this whole really weird fucking sequence with this werewolf kid that trick-or-treats at their door. And they go to the neighbors to see if they really have a son. And the guy's like, I don't have a child. And they're like, my God, he was a werewolf. And that's just the end. But that's vaguely what the film is about. There's just, once they arrive to Transylvania, so much weird bullshit happens in this small town with this like ethnic folk festival and the hotel that they're booked in at, weird sex scenes between Ben and Jenny. It's just, it's bizarre.
It was already, so like the beginning bit in LA is already like kind of weird. And then it gets really weird in that one like crypt sequence where they're trying to stop the body and everything from waking up, and oh no, now there's werewolves, and every time they shoot someone it then like goes to a superimposed shot of the like close up of the werewolf going as they die. This movie is cut in the most insane way I've ever seen in my life. And then once it gets to Transylvania, it really went like, you thought that was weird. Well, now that the pilot is finished, because the first 20 minutes is not a first act, it's a pilot for this mini-series.
Yeah, look, the logic of the film is fucking bananas, but I was like, okay, all right, well, this guy's just found out his sister is a werewolf. That's a whole change to his world. And there's this guy, Stefan, enticing him to come to Transylvania to fight a werewolf queen. And then they leave to do that. And I'm like, okay, that's a classic structure for the first act. But there's no reason for it. Like, there's just I don't understand why they have to go. Like, I'm sure they explained it away in the film, but there's no reason properly given as to why they have to kill Sturba in particular.
He's Stefan, the Van Helsing of werewolves.
Played by Christopher Lee, and it's amazing.
Giving such an interesting performance where he seems to both be phoning it in every way and also genuinely believes he is Stefan. His explanation was something along the lines of, they're in the middle of transforming and de-evolving, which I don't understand, because that implies that human beings are related to wolves and not, or maybe the werewolves are de-evolving or something, and she's going to do a ritual before the next full moon, and that's going to cement her power forever. Like, none of it means anything, and it's not a normal werewolf thing.
I'm so glad you brought up the white. I'm so glad you brought up the evolving element, because the evolving element is probably, it's related to the funniest piece of trivia I've ever read about any movie.
Oh, cool.
And it was, you're right, it is not part of werewolf lore that werewolves are descended from humans. But I have an explanation for you, and it's fucking insane.
I'm so excited to find out.
Dude, I have a lot of trivia, so like I've just got to manage my time here.
Yeah.
But I think let's get the biggest thing out of the way.
Okay.
Let's talk about Sturber.
Yeah, we have to.
Let's talk about Sybil Danning. Let's just chat about her. She's one of the most distinctive villains I've ever seen, and I fucking dug her weird sexualized energy.
Yeah. So we've had movies like Grease 2 that are like horny. This movie is just like sexualized. It's not horny, it's just sexualized. And all she does is fuck or want to fuck. Yeah. We see her just like watching other people have sex repeatedly as she starts to transform. She's wearing this like Grace Jones outfit of like tight leather with gold bars on it and like flat sunglasses. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. She clearly cannot sit down in it as well.
Because she's always standing, yeah.
There's one shot where she does have to sit, and you literally watch her like awkwardly sort of lower herself down to chair level and then move over onto the chair because she clearly can't like bend over in the outfit.
I loved her insane blonde hairstyle. I loved the elaborate costumes they put her in. I think this film is really bizarre because it's really sexualized. It's got like a lot of like nudity and orgy scenes, and there's like a sex scene apparently. But I mean, like there's meant to be a sex scene, and we'll get to that later. But like,
right.
It's one of those films where it's like so absurd and camp that it's not like sexy, it's just sexualized. Like there's definitely a line between like when there's like eroticism in cinema and it feels like really intimate and like actually sexually charged, and then stuff like this where it's just campy nudity, like it's just like tits are getting flashed and there's like these bizarre sex scenes. Like Claude showed me Heavy Metal for the first time.
Okay.
Have you heard about Heavy Metal?
No, I've heard the genre, but I haven't heard of the movie.
Nice. So Heavy Metal's like this animated 1981 film where it's like a bunch of like vignettes all sewn together by like the force of evil, and it's really like campy, kind of fantastical fun. It's got a lot of good voice actors in it. Like John Candy is one of like the leads in the second vignette. But it's really like it's misogynistic as fuck. Like there's all these like women with like big tits that like, and like their tits are exposed all the time, and like they're like there's like these like sex scenes and stuff, but there's nothing really sexual about it because it's so stupid and campy, and this is that kind of thing. It's like that schlocky 80s like tits out but not sexy at all because it's just so dumb.
This movie is obsessed with tits to the point where there's this one shot of Sybil Danning ripping her shirt off to reveal her tits from the side that the credits is a montage of just other shots in the movie, including playing that clip maybe I think 20 times.
To be precise, it's 17 times.
I was pretty close.
You were pretty close. And I have a very interesting piece of trivia surrounding that scene, but I'll talk about it later. But that scene is infamous. Apparently, those end credit sequences are infamous because it's the weirdest thing about this film is that they got this fucking fictional band called Babel to do the Howling theme, and that's the song that they keep playing in all the weird concert scenes that happen like 3 separate times.
They cut to that scene several times after it happens, and they use that song as if it's the only song in the movie. It plays like 8 or 9 times. Like every scene transition will have him. It's not even different parts of the song. It's like the same part of the song every single time. This movie is so like emphatically for repetition. It just will constantly cut to things we've already seen, things that are about to happen, and then when we see it, it'll cut back to the first thing and like loops upon loops of flashbacks.
There's something that they fucking love doing is that every time Christopher Lee would talk, and he'd talk in this like prophesizing way, they'd just splice this weird scene of something that had either happened or was about to happen over him, and I was like, what the fuck? Like there's this bit where they're like, where do we need to go? And he's like, to the dark country, and then they splice in this like shot of a skeleton ringing a bell. And it goes back to his face and he's like, Transylvania. And then it just cuts to the same shot because now they're in Transylvania. It's just dumb. It's just weird.
The werewolves will be having a huge fucking orgy and then it'll like cut to the concert we saw at the beginning and then it'll cut to a skeleton and then it'll cut to the protagonists in the town during the daytime at a different time and then it'll cut to just all these close-ups of werewolves going fully transformed, which they aren't in the scene. Everything is like disconnected from there's so many shots that exist not part of anything that's going on. They are just they're just visual.
Did you notice that there's certain shots of like during the transformation, they're incredible like close-up shots, like incredibly close-up shots of like claws coming out and teeth rather than like getting to see it all on the face. You just see like the claws and the teeth up close. Yeah. There's a reason for that.
Okay, are some of them repeated from the first one?
No.
Oh, I could have sworn at least one of them was.
Maybe one of them was, but not from what I've read, at least. God, it's such a bananas fucking story. Like the whole production is just ridiculous. Sturbo was just like an outstanding character, and even though she was completely like sexualized and degraded in the film as a woman, I don't care because it was just so fucking, I do care, but it was just so fucking dumb and so silly, and I actually really dug it. I mean, I love watching a female villain.
Yeah, this movie's fucking insane. I don't understand. It's so disconnected. Like so much of it isn't a werewolf movie. Almost everything that happens in it is like, this isn't a werewolf thing at all.
Yeah. Yeah. There isn't that much werewolfing. Like, it's weird that she's also a witch. Like, she does this, like, Wiccan chant.
Yeah.
And, like, she has these, like, witchy powers rather than just being a werewolf.
She, as not a werewolf, just standing there, does things like splay her hand out while like cartoon beams come out of it to make Stefan like move towards her. A lot of the time there's this whole discussion of like, oh yeah, you don't just like shoot them with silver bullets, you have to stab them stake them in the heart with silver. And I'm like, hey, that's not a that's
not a werewolf thing.
But then Christopher Lee specifically says, no, but they're really strong, so you can't use silver. You have to use titanium, which is not anything. I don't know, is titanium an alloy that has silver in it? Why is it titanium why is it just a different thing?
I have no idea. Also, in that bit where she's doing that Wiccan chant, that was my favorite fucking scene, is that she's stirring this like evil chant, and the character of Ben, who is played by this really camp also B-movie actor, and his name is, let me just find it,
because he was easily to me the least interesting part. Like, he's very American man, that's why he's wearing double venom.
Did you say double venom?
Shit, double denim.
He was played by funny. Reb Brown, and Reb Brown was known as he played Captain America in the television film in like the late 70s.
Really?
Then he was also in a bunch of B movies like You're the Hunter from the Future and Space Mutiny and Strike Commando and Robo War. Like, he was known for really schlocky shit. Okay. And I love it because he's honestly the worst actor I've ever seen. Like, every time he needed to be like shocked or horrified, he was just kind of like, shit, let's go. Like, really like just like flat, giving you really absolutely flat. Nothing. My favorite scene, his character, the main character Ben, is with this tiny little like, it's like this little person from the ethnic folk festival, and he's in this like the I don't know the character's name, but they're in this like strange like creepy puppeteer garb. That's what they're dressed as.
Yes.
And they've just like tried to spy on the camp. They've been caught. They're running through the forest. Yeah. And Sturba starts summoning her Wiccan chant, and they both have earplugs in to defend themselves from her chant. But not the main characters, the guy from the ethnic folk festival, his earplugs fall out and he hears the Wiccan chant. And by the way, I keep calling it the ethnic folk festival because that's what Wikipedia called it. And his earplugs fall out and he hears the Wiccan chant, and it's like painful to him and it's mortifying, and he tells the main character Ben to run on, and he lies there and he's screaming, and Sturba summons up like this big storm of like a chant, and finally this guy's eyes just burst out of his skull. I loved it so much. I just went back and watched it again. Like, I just loved that scene so much.
It's also so weird because when I watch a werewolf movie, what I'm not expecting is to have a non-werewolf woman explode someone's eyes out with her yell power. It's not a werewolf thing. He also, earlier in the scene, He also has to knock out a guard. The guards of the castle, by the way, are shirtless, have a steel medieval helmet and machine guns, which is a great combo.
Yeah, they do. There's just guns in this film. Like, that's just like what they keep commonly using. Like, Reb Brown, the American denim hero, keeps solving things at the end just by blasting all these like folk characters with his little gun. Like, he's killing like witches and vampires with his fucking just pistols. It's so good.
At one point, he tells Stefan he doesn't know how to use a knife and will instead use a gun, which I think is really funny.
It's so American. He really is Captain America, man.
But the little person dispatches the guard by throwing a knife at him, and then while he's clutching his chest, runs over to him. He has the longest mace I've ever seen. It's about as tall as he is, with the, classic metal spiky ball at the end, and then thwacks him on the head with the wood part. Like, he doesn't even use it as a mace. It just... The whole image of this guy with a giant, colossal metal helmet and no shirt and a machine gun getting taken out by the wood part of a mace. It's exactly what this movie is.
It's so fucking good. Also, I love how terrible the lead actress was. And by the way, the lead actress, Annie McKenna, I think her name was, the lead actress is like a knockoff Jamie Lee Curtis. Like, the film started and I was like, is that Jamie Lee Curtis but not Jamie Lee Curtis? And she's just like a worse Jamie Lee Curtis.
I felt that when the movie had, it's now my favorite, I think we've even talked about it before, the trope in horror movies of the fake out jump scare.
I was going to bring this up, but you go for it, because that's where I was about to go. You say it.
Cool. Because I love, the classic fake out jump scare where something's creeping forward and then at the last minute it'll be not something scary. In this case, she's in the bath. She's just in there, eyes closed. The camera's like drifting towards her. The music is getting sinister. And we're like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And then it cuts to Ben just standing there and he goes, boo, gotcha.
Yeah, he's like, boo. Getcha, honey. And then it goes back to her reaction of barely being shocked, and then it just cuts, and that's the whole scene. It's honestly like 20 seconds of
just jump or anything.
I'm glad you brought that up. I watched that scene like 3 or 4 times on repeat. I just went back and watched it again and again because it was so flat and so ridiculous. I loved it.
And it's not even the thing of like, oh, it's setting up a similar scare later, or that happens before there is something scary. It is just its own isolated scene, not connected to anything. You could put it anywhere in the movie and it would play identically.
I also want to talk about the fucking tryst, like the threesome, the menage a trois between Sturba, Marsha, and Vlad. And Vlad and Marsha are like her like bad, evil, like right hand, like men and women.
Yeah, like her lieutenants.
They basically just like, Sturba just rips off Marsha's top and is just like, let's fucking have sex. And then they have not sex, they just writhe together on a bed covered in fur as they transform. And they're just going and just flexing their claws at one another. And this isn't a piece of trivia I found on IMDb, so I'll just tell you now. And it's actually a good segue to get into trivia because I've got a lot of it and we've only got so much time.
I'm so keen.
This is something I read in an article. I love the film so much. I was just reading different articles about people recounting their favorite parts of Howling 2 because it's such a cult film. I love it. And this one person had basically mentioned a piece of trivia I couldn't find on IMDb, which is very common. But essentially that sex scene was because the costume that they had on was put on by basically attaching like hundreds of threads of hair onto their body. So it's not like, it wasn't a suit that they were putting on. They were getting glued, like this hair glued onto them. And it was an 8-hour process. So the actors stood completely naked, like genitals out. Yeah. And then they would just had these bits of hair glued to them. And then when they started performing the scene, and it was meant to be like a proper sex scene, they realized that the hair was getting rubbed off. And it would be so meticulously placed on their bodies. They were like, we can't have it come off. So they improvised and they were like, what if you just did sexy things next to each other? Like didn't rub up against each other like having sex. What if you all just lay on the bed next to each other and just kind of growled a bit? And that's exactly what they did.
What if you just got hot? It makes them feel like they're teenagers who like aren't quite ready yet, but they're just like got so many hormones coursing through their bodies. They're just writhing.
Yeah.
Like a kid who's home alone and doesn't know what to do with this energy, just like writhing there, but then they're next to each other.
I think something that adds another layer to this film is that this film wasn't shot in America. They genuinely went to Europe to film it. They went to Czechoslovakia and it was filmed in genuine old castles and villages.
So they didn't go to Romania, but they went close.
They weren't close. And I love it because it informs a lot of really also interesting pieces of trivia that I want to tell you about right now.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
IMDb Trivia!
Where to begin? I'll begin with Christopher Lee.
Okay.
So, director Philip Mora didn't know that Christopher Lee was a war hero in Czechoslovakia. This was not something he was allowed to talk about, but during World War II, he was part of an intelligence agency. And so when they showed up to film this film in Czechoslovakia, he was greeted with a hero's welcome at the airport when they arrived.
Wow. I knew that he was an intelligence officer because I'd heard people mentioning it in part of trivia about Lord of the Rings, but I didn't know he was specifically a hero in Czechoslovakia. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, and it just so happens that, they filmed there. And I think I didn't include a lot of this. There was actually a lot of information about this, and I really had to distill what I thought was just the funniest shit that I found.
Okay.
But Philip Mora later came out with a biography about his experience working with Christopher Lee and how he found out all these incredible things about Christopher Lee's time in Czechoslovakia. Like, Christopher Lee took him down to a basement that he was actually put up against a wall and threatened with death by Nazi officers and like trapped there for like days. He was showing the director all these places and parts of his history in Czechoslovakia, and Philip Mora was losing his mind, being like, I had no idea. So Christopher Lee was like running him through his incredibly personal history during the war, and Philip Mora was just in awe, and they became really good friends. So that was just a thing on its own. It's not I can't even include it because there was so much information about it, but it was just really wholesome and nice. I also couldn't include all the information about Christopher Lee's time in Czechoslovakia because it was so extensive, and just go on his wiki, it's all there. But
I
found that
for Christopher Lee's Wikipedia entry. Check it out.
We all know Christopher Lee is just a fascinating guy.
He is.
So Christopher Lee stated in an interview at the time of this movie's American release that his only reason for accepting the role was because he had never appeared in a werewolf film. Pretty decent.
I love it. And I specifically said to my girlfriend while watching, he is giving the energy of my nephew really wants me to be in this, and knowing that he's mostly in it to just put on his record that he's in a werewolf movie is exactly the same as nephew energy.
It makes sense. I mean, he was like the king of B-grade films. Like, he was the king of like schlocky, horror films. When he was cast in Gremlins 2, the new batch, because he was.
God, he
was in Gremlins 2.
Fucking Gremlins 2!
That film was directed by Joe Dante, who directed the first Howling.
Yeah.
And apparently when he got onto the set and met Joe Dante, he apologized for being in Howling too.
Joe Dante at that point, just for more context for the audience, that's especially funny because that would have been while Joe Dante was directing Gremlins 2, which is not like... That's Joe Dante making fun of Gremlins 1, a different movie that he's clearly okay with making fun of his fucking work. Gremlins 2 is the Howling 2 Gremlins.
Since the year was 1984 when this was filmed, the movie was shot behind the Iron Curtain. Naturally, this was the source of particularly unusual production issues on and around the set. Mostly because...
How did I not even think of that? Holy shit.
Mostly because everyone was being surveilled by the KGB every waking hour. In fact, both Sybil Danning and Christopher Lee were watched by a strange man that sat in a corner of the restaurant they ate dinner at every night. Even Reb Brown said that during his transatlantic phone calls with his wife, he could hear men breathing and coughing on the line.
What the bad spying.
Spying. But they were obviously nothing happened because they were there on the grounds of making art, so they were let in and excused for that. But they were constantly monitored. Director Philip Mora has said that Sir Christopher Lee felt that Reb Brown and Annie McEnroe were so bad in their leading roles that Christopher Lee was often offset frequently in a way as if he were wishing himself away from being in this film. He fucking hated their performances.
I wonder if that is what, is it in the script that Stefan keeps walking away, or did Christopher Lee just fuck off so frequently? Because there's 4 different times where it feels like they're all going to do something together, and then Stefan turns to them and says, I'm going to go here, meet me there, and then we'll walk in the same direction they're going to go.
Yeah.
But he's specifically abandoning them.
Also, just a bit of information about their time in Czechoslovakia. When the crew arrived in Soviet-controlled Prague, he asked the local authority for a location to shoot the werewolf's lair. to his surprise, he was taken to a Catholic church and was shown the church's crypt. He loved the location, but he felt really uneasy about doing scenes that contained nudity and killings in a church. So he went to the priest to tell him about what they were going to do, and much to his surprise, the priest gave his permission.
Oh.
Philip was taken aback and asked the priest, "Isn't this considered desecration?" To which the priest replied, "Absolutely, but we've been asking the Soviets to allow a bishop from the Vatican to come visit us for years, and now they have to for sanctification." The next day, he received a call from the priest informing him that he had called the Vatican, and they gave him the go-ahead. Philip Maurer also said that the Soviets were impressed with him for not caring about shooting in a religious building, as they disliked the church and would do anything to annoy the Vatican. So it's just like a win-win on both sides.
Yeah.
I just find it like so fascinating, the environment and the world in which he had to make this dumb, schlocky, stupid fucking Hollywood film.
While being used as a pawn by the Vatican and the Soviets to spite each other. If I could get those two entities to spite each other, I would. I'd be like, hell yeah.
We're about to get into my favorite bit of information. It fucks me up. So... You know how Sybil Danning as Sturber is wearing sunglasses?
Yeah. At nighttime in a castle.
Apparently, she arrived on set one day and she said she wasn't sure what to do because she had conjunctivitis. So the director, Philip Maurer, said, "Here, wear these sunglasses." She protested because the scene was indoors, and Philip told her, "Sybil, you're the queen of werewolves. You can wear whatever damn well like. You can wear whatever you damn well like." It's so... That's what I mean. Like, this guy didn't give a fuck. He was like, "This is the dumbest film ever. Just wear these fucking sunglasses." And those sunglasses became iconic. Like, everyone is just like, "Oh, that Sturber, the outfit, the glasses, the weird leather that she can't sit down in."
They're so iconic. Like I said, very Grace Jones, a famously fashionable woman, like incredible. I didn't even care at the time that it was indoors and nighttime. When you're watching it, you're just like, "Oh, fuck, what's this?" I'm pretty sure the outfit is also introduced in a scene where she is just walking around a room while looking, and we hear voices, and I still, to this point, have no fucking clue who was speaking in what way and what it was meant to mean. She just wanders around. There's a lot of scenes like that where you watch it and you're like, I don't really know what's going on, and then they just end. Sorry.
I feel like director Philip Maurer was just taking the piss. He said that this film was set to celebrate the 10,000th birthday of the bi-curious werewolf queen Sturber. Like, he's just bizarre. But this piece of trivia makes me sad, and I want to sandwich it with my favorite piece of trivia at the end. Okay. But this piece of trivia is genuinely like annoying and upsetting and disturbing, and I feel really bad for Sybil Danning.
Okay.
She was really tired of having to go topless or nude so often in her movies because she was a sex symbol of like the 70s and 80s in B movies, and she was just tired of it. She wanted to remain clothed for this film. The producers disagreed, but in the end, a compromise was reached where Danning would do a single topless shot. She was very angry on watching the finished film to find that the ending credits featured the shot no less than 17 times. That's awful. That's disgusting. And the fact that they basically manipulated that deal to continue to use that one shot again and again. Apparently the first cut, it wasn't 17 times. It was like far more. It was like almost the entire thing was just... Yeah, it was like, I think it was almost like tripled the amount of times. So that she was so angry, apparently she stormed the producer's office and demanded that they remove it. And they were like, "We'll remove a bit of it, but no."
That's fucked up.
So unfortunately, like, yeah, it's really fucked up.
I understand that the way that like copyright and stuff works means that when you shoot an image, like you own the image, right? But like that's a real fucking person's body, and that's not the way that they like, consented to be presented.
You degraded the leading lady through a loophole. Like, fuck you. You're a piece of shit. Like, it's just a disgusting way to treat your female lead. And I'm sure she was treated like that all the time. So I'm sorry, Sybil. And like, it's hard to enjoy that end sequence knowing that. You're like, yeah, fuck. Like, this woman has watched the scene and she was profoundly like embarrassed and disturbed in the premiere when it happened. So it's really fucking awful.
I definitely didn't enjoy it anyway. It's easily my least favorite part of the movie because it feels weird and exploitative.
Yeah, the continued ripping off of her shirt, I was like, that actually made me really fucking angry. I was like, I love how campy this is. And I was like, this is, gross.
Yeah.
But let me tell you my favorite thing that I have ever read, my favorite piece of trivia I've ever stumbled across. You mentioned that you were really confused by the line about evolution.
Yes, I was very confused by it.
Well, here you go.
Oh, boy.
When the werewolf suits finally arrived for the shoot, they were contained in a crate marked 20th Century Fox Planet of the Apes. Director Philip Mora was horrified to find he had been sent monkey suits. He quickly contacted a producer who replied, "You're talented, you'll make it work." Mora tried to get his point across that the monkey suits were impossible to pass off as werewolves, only to have the producer hang up on him. Stuck with monkey suits, Sir Christopher Lee overheard the dilemma and came up with an idea to help make the ape-looking werewolves work with the improvised line, "The process of evolution is reversed." Director Philip Mora loved the idea and said this movie became noted by one critic for being the only werewolf movie to have the phrase, "Man, monkey, wolf."
Okay, so I didn't misunderstand it. It is fully implying that human beings are descended from wolves first.
Exactly. And that, and that like the transition into wolf is via monkey. It's so fucking good.
It's like a color chart. Like, oh, they're trying to get from red to blue, but they have to go buy purple first.
I feel like this fucking director was scrambling. Like, he just kept getting obstacle after obstacle hurled at him. It's fucking amazing. Man, monkey, wolf.
You're talented. You can make the apes look like wolves. It's really funny for a sequel of a film with really great werewolf effects.
So fucking funny.
It explains
so
why
good.
because one of the things that I had a theory while watching it that it was written as a vampire movie and then they changed it to be werewolves at the last minute, because the whole thing feels extraordinarily, it's like the whole film is vampires, but what if they were werewolves? Like, they're in Transylvania, they're in a castle, they're really horny and sexy. Part of why I had my theory was that every single time that there's a shot like that is of an actual wolf's head, it's just a close-up. And it's usually like we see the body of it doing something and then superimposed the close-up of the werewolf. And they're never connected. But now I know that that's not because of my theory. That's just because they were actually ape suits. Did the werewolf effect separately?
Yeah. Well, you know how I was telling you that they had those really close-up shots of the claws and the teeth?
Yeah.
It's not that it came from a different movie. It's just that they didn't have werewolf effects over in Czechoslovakia. It wasn't sent to them. So they had to basically shoot what they could. And when they got back to LA, they were doing all these close-up shots where they could of just things growing. So it looked more werewolf-like, but really it was just close-ups of monkey suits and like these, and then in America all these claws and proper werewolf aesthetics. It was just, he really pasted together what he could.
This movie feels glued together, so that, I mean, I guess good job. It's a very, watching it, it's an incredibly creative solution. Does it work in the way that a normal movie works? Oh no, not at all, but it's fucking incredible.
It's so fucking good. Do you want to hear some reviews?
I would love nothing else.
Reviews!
I actually don't have too many reviews for you because I knew that this would be a trivia-heavy episode. But this film has 31% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's pretty high.
Yeah. This is a review left by Mike Massey. The entire production appears to be nothing more than an excuse for the filmmakers to vacation in Europe. Probably true. Roger Ebert left a review saying, "The heroes get involved in the strange rituals of the cult of Sturba. Although the rituals, like the rest of the movie, are impenetrable and amazingly inept, I have to concede that no one presides over a ritual quite as well as Sybil Danning." Basically, he gave this film a terrible review, but he was like, I loved Sybil Danning. She was great. And I agree.
He's right. He's totally right.
And I have one IMDb review for you because none of them were actually very interesting. But this one I loved because I was befuddled by it. It was left by Jesse Gehrig. It's a 10 out of 10 review, and it's called The Moon is High and Wide and Bright.
Ooh.
Howling 2 is not about sex, except for all the sex. During the credits, in case you missed any of the nudity in the movie, they play a loop Sybil dangling exposing her breasts. That's considered nudity. If a shirtless dude walks around through a movie, it's not considered nudity. Does that mean that men are innately non-sexual while women become naked, it's inherently sexual? Or does it mean that people who are in charge of deciding what is and isn't nudity are full of poop? This is the plot of Howling 2. The actors who starred are your parents. Someday the remake will star you. The movie is called Getting It On, the story of the human race.
What?
10 out of 10.
What? At first I was like, are we reading someone in real time discovering the sexualization of women in our culture? And then it went so...
They're completely devolving. Like, this is someone that's just... I honestly think someone was on a tab of acid and was like, I'm going to watch Howling 2 and leave an IMDb 10 out of 10 review.
I think this was the monkey portion of the evolution from human to wolf of discovering that we over-sexualize women.
Yeah, it started as man, went to monkey, and then finished as wolf.
Eventually they'll get there.
It On.
It's called Getting It On.
The story of the human race. I love, this is the plot of Howling 2. The actors who started your parents, someday the remake will star you. It's just so threatening.
I also love that it's not the sequel, it's the remake will star you. Like, is there...
it's the most unhinged IMDb review I've ever come across. I adore it.
It's definitely my favorite one, easily.
Yeah. Thank you, Jesse Garrick. I'm going to look up what else he's left. I really want to...
I hope you're a recurring character too, Jesse Garrick.
Yeah, we'll add you to the list, right behind Beaver and Russ Robinson.
Hell yeah.
But Michelle, what would you rate Howling 2?
Obviously, it's tough because, like, we've talked so many praises about this movie. It is important to say, like, it's bad in the sense that it communicates information poorly. A lot of the time, there's scenes where the blocking leads to incredible confusion about what the fuck is going on. There's so many instances of characters not being in a space and then they're introduced with an extreme close-up of their face before we then see that they're on the opposite side of the room. It's really fucking hard to keep track of anything that's happening physically, and it's really hard to keep track of what's going on plot-wise, despite the fact that everyone has the dialogue of a 4-year-old. The dialogue is so buck wild in this movie. But I kind of also really dig that the editing, on the one hand, is terrible, but on the other hand, it's the most distinct editing I've ever seen in my life. They use superimposition and cutaways more than I've ever seen in a film. Does it work? No. But someone was in the cutting room trying to invent a whole new school of editing, and it's incredible, and I'm here for it. So I'm going to give it... I don't want to just give it a cop-out 5, or I don't have to make a stand. I'm going to make a stand. This is a I mean, it's not a movie. It's like a 1 and a 5.2 at the same time, you know? Well, you know what? You go with you, and then we'll do it together. 3,
Are you
2,
sure?
1.
Because I think I might throw you off a little bit.
Oh, no. Throw me off.
I'm giving this a 10 out of 10.
Oh, my God.
10 out of 10, babe. I can do whatever the fuck I want. This is my podcast. I love it. It's 10 out of 10. It's 10 out of 10. This is my favorite film ever. It's 10 out of 10.
No, okay, you're right.
I feel like morally I should deduct points for the fact that they fucked over Sybil Danning,
Yes.
and that is a disgusting part of the backstory of this film. But as a viewer, just to learn how I felt watching the film, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. Would watch again.
I'm pretty sure the highest score I've given something is 7 or 7.5, so I'm going to give it whatever my highest score is, which means if later I give something an 8, this is then retroactively bumped up to an 8. This is just whatever my highest score is. I can't make it higher, but this
You
matches.
can't do that. It fucks over any graphs that we're doing to track our ratings, man. Yours can't
then
fluctuate.
They better stay up to date. It's going to fluctuate, baby.
Fuck. 10 out of 10, baby. And I don't think I need to elaborate. It was the fucking best thing I've ever watched, and I would watch it again. I want to watch it again right now.
The pure power of saying Howling 2 is a 10 out of 10, no need to elaborate, is... I admire you. I'm here for it.
I've never felt more confident about anything in my life, ever. I say this with the purest of certainty. I've never said anything with more certainty, and I said yes when Claude proposed to me, so...
Whoa, there was no need to bring that in.
Well, I really wanted to bring this up at some point. I thought, why not now? Sure. 58 minutes into our recording.
No, you are 100% a 10,000-year-old bi-curious werewolf queen.
That's so nice. Maybe I really liked Sturba. I thought she was a great character, apart from them incredible. Fucking sexualizing the shit out of her control.
Yeah.
I loved her. I thought she was a great fucking character. I loved that evil blonde bitch.
Does she feel like a werewolf? Not even in the slightest. Not even close.
Well, that's the thing. She feels like a witch, and I love witches.
Yeah, maybe that's a lot to do with it. Like at the end when she's like enticing Stefan over before he stabs her, and then it just cuts to the wide and they're suddenly both on fire. Yeah. But she also seems very hot for her brother, and it's very strange. I don't know why they always do that with villains.
I don't want you to question my 10 out of 10 film, all right?
Don't
bring it down. No, we only have good things to say about Howling 2.
But it was great. Double denim hero with no defining traits? Hell yeah, 10 out of 10.
Well, Michelle, that was Howling 2, our Halloween bonus episode. Don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find us on Twitter under Rate Descend Pod, TikTok under Rating Descending, or you can email us at ratingdescending@gmail.com.
Or you can find us on our own social media platforms. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Michelle St. Scare. No, it's Michelle St. Clair. Michelle.St. Clair.
Also, it was Machete St. Scare. Fucking hell,
Machete St. Scare.
Or you can find me on Insta under Abigail J. Ward.
But also, pretty please, if you could, if you liked our spooky Halloween vibes, you could give us a spooky Halloween Apple Podcasts review.
Yeah, please, it really makes a difference. No, do it for Halloween. Do it for Sturba. Yeah. Embody that pure werewolf bi-curious bitch essence and leave us a fucking review.
Do it. I want to see one review that's like, damn, that's a spooky pod, baby.
That spooked me up.
That spooked me up. Sturba scared me to my very bones.
I'm still shaking. That was spooky.
If only I had a pre-approved Spookums list. Sturba did not appear on it.
Hang on, Machete. I think there is a pre-approved Spookums list on hand. Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you next Halloween and also probably next week.
Yes, probably. I mean, definitely next week, but probably next Halloween when it's spooky.
Goodbye.
Oh.